So New York Mayor Bill de Blasio seems to be gearing up to run for president. There seems to be no existing support for him, which is pretty hilarious. You would think that the mayor of New York would have had plenty of time and platform to promote himself over the last few years, but apparently he hasn't made a lot of friends on the left. Most of the conversation that I saw from folks on the left on Twitter was quite negative towards him, sort of writing him off kind of as a poser, which I find quite interesting because, the right tends to portray de Blasio as a hardline communist, which, they kind of have good reason to, considering that he worked with the Sandinistas in the 80s, and and has his rhetoric has been consistently Marxist. He's been quite worried about, his whole Tale of Two Cities line that he uses to describe New York, basically saying, well, there's New York for the rich folks, and then you've got New York for the poor folks, and it's like two different places. Which is kind of true, to be honest. Of course, it's not exactly because of a firm commitment to laissez-faire, but unfortunately for him, in the time that he's been in office, most of the true commies who he may have been able to draw some support from in the primary feel that he's governed basically as a normal neoliberal, slightly to the left of Michael Bloomberg, who considers himself a center-left guy. So de Blasio might be on the left, but he's not quite to the he's nowhere near the socialist left in their estimation. I saw a bit of concern that his whole affordable housing plan exacerbated gentrification, which I found pretty funny. So essentially, he talks like Bernie and has a history like Bernie. Actually, he has a history that's probably more overtly communist than Bernie. Yet he governs in these people's eyes like he's Beto O'Rourke. So he has the worst of both worlds. He has, sort of the scary old communist persona of Bernie, but then he has the unpopular policies of Beto, so he can't appeal to the people who would like, a normal, boring neoliberal Democrat, but he also can't appeal to the socialists. He has no constituency. He's essentially a paper Marxist. But, getting back to his history, he did pretty credibly in the 80s work with a group that was allied with the Sandinistas, and he's never, backed down from that, which I kind of respect, because most people would try to distance themselves from, a communist organization, that they were affiliated with in the 80s. I don't think even Bernie says that he likes the Soviets. De Blasio, or Warren Wilhelm, as he was born, and I think he might have still been called back then. He has no problem endorsing the Sandinistas and says that, hey, they've got their faults, but I agree with their general philosophy, and the U.S. shouldn't have intervened, which I really respect that part, the non-interventionist part. I don't know if that's only a matter of convenience, though, if he doesn't think the U.S. should have intervened because, he happened to support the Sandinistas. That's something I'll be watching for, because, if we could get an actual non-interventionist candidate, other than Tulsi, who's already in, that would be great. We need more of those voices. Of course, it doesn't sound like that de Blasio is going to have much traction, even if he did become that guy. He might just make it look bad, since he's already unpopular, so maybe it wouldn't be such a great thing for him to come out with lots of anti-war positions. And, of course, after he worked with the Sandinistas, he got married in the early 90s and honeymooned in communist Cuba. Isn't that wonderful? And also, more recently, last year, he started up a PAC that was supposed to fund, strong progressive candidates, who were supposed to make sure that the Dem Party was moving left, and so that, he'd back them and things that make sure that, progressives were getting elected. And nobody would accept his money, which I found hilarious. Imagine being a politician. It's very hard to raise money when you're a politician, and having someone offer you free money, like the mayor of New York, and just not taking any of it. They must really, really not like him, because, politicians take some pretty dirty money. So I don't quite understand what the disdain, why there's such a strong disdain for him, because I do understand that, okay, he might have been a little disappointing, but why would you hate the guy? There's a difference between being disappointed and hating him. But anyway, the point of this PAC was supposed to be to, sort of endear him to his party, say, oh, look, I'm helping support you guys, I'm serious about the mission. And then that way, when he ran for president and this PAC was already established, it could support him. That's, how people tend to run for president these days in the post, what was the name of that decision? The post-Citizens United world. They start a PAC, and they sort of act as the director of the PAC for, a year or so, and then they say, oh, I just, by pure coincidence, I've decided to run for president. Now there's this PAC that, of course, they're not officially affiliated with. It's sitting on a huge war chest of money. That money's probably all going to go to waste, though, since nobody would take his money last year. All of it's going to pretty much go to his campaign, if he ends up running, which it looks like he is. But he has no constituency, so I don't know if he can somehow build one out and, reform his persona so that he appeals to somebody. But I guess we're going to find out. So that's about it.